going on, guys? This is my coverage of the 2022 Winter Forge training event hosted by S&S Training Solutions at the Combat Maneuver Training Center in Coleman, Missouri. This is the third time S&S has hosted this event and has become a constant annual course offering for them. If this training facility looks familiar to you, it's because it's the same training area that Alpha Company 1 Shepherd uses during its spring, summer, and fall semesters. First day at Winter Forge starts bright and early, with a quick formation and introduction followed by some basic classroom instructions on cold weather operations.
Attention! Fire! Stand up. Ease. All right, relax, guys. Well, you guys prayed to the Nordic gods for snow, and here you guys have it. Welcome back to Winter Forge for you guys coming back, and welcome if you're coming for the first time. All right, this is what we're here for. We were looking at the forecast for the last 2 weeks, and we're hoping for this snowstorm. Here it is, guys. This is what we're here for. It's going to happen, okay? All right, there's a lot of good training that Light Fighter Studies Group is going to put on for us today, and we're going to continue to bridge that gap from patrolling as a 3-season warrior into a 4-season warrior, okay? It takes the right knowledge, equipment, and training and application to do it safely, okay?
So the first introductory class here is Introduction to Cold Weather Operations, and specifically we're going to talk about cold weather regions and climates, okay? And then a little bit about how the cold affects our bodies, and then it's going to segue into, so then what are we going to do about it, okay? Because what all the other classes you're going to get the rest of the week are going to be structured in such a way that you need this knowledge up front.
If you're static, you're not generating as much heat as it when you're active, and then you also know the wet, cold, dry, cold type of dynamic, right? Okay, so from there, we have all of our system, our clothing system is going to be basically broken up into 3 categories. You have your base layers, okay? These base layers are predominantly for pulling moisture from your body and pushing it to your outer layers, but they also aid in the insulation of different things by creating additional air pockets within your system. And then you have your insulatory or your insulation layers, and this is primarily to create those air pockets and retain some warm air inside your system, but it also helps with pulling moisture to outer layers as well. It's all meant to pull moisture from you and keep moisture from coming in. Okay, and then you have what's called a shell layer on the outside of that. Okay, and so just like your house, if you have great insulation on a little wood frame or something like that on the exterior, because they have like plywood, and you got an excellent roof, but you don't have siding on your walls, and you got a really bad storm, and the wood gets wet and it seeps into the insulation, and then it destroys your insulation. Or if you don't have walls in your house and you got a really nice roof, but the wind's just passing through, you're not going to be able to retain any kind of climate inside your home because it's essentially just a gazebo at that point, right? Mm-hmm. And so just like your house needs to have all of those different facets depending on the weather to function properly and to maintain that climate, so does your system. You need to make sure that you're considering what your climate is, what your activity is, in order to regulate that temperature properly.
Following the classroom portion of the training, we would then pack our rucks and head out into the field for some more classes and subsequently remain in the field for the final culminating event at Winter Forge, the Field Training Exercise, or FTX. All of your personal gear would be packed up and carried with you in your ruck. Larger, heavier items, such as the 10-man Arctic tent, would be delivered via truck later on in the day. Stepping off from the fob, the men would make their way to a pre-selected site for the remaining classes, as well as begin setting up the bivouac site for the FTX. This movement would also give the guys some experience in patrolling in a cold weather environment, especially with rucks on. Operating in a cold and snow-covered environment has its own set of challenges that you're not typically used to thinking about. Heat management is a critical skill set that an infantryman needs to constantly deal with. When you move, your body begins to create heat, and subsequently you begin to sweat. Therefore, you must step off with the least amount of warming layers on as possible. If you don't, you will arrive at your final destination sweaty, and in a cold weather environment, being sweaty kills. The idea here is that you have your thicker, dry warming layers packed away in your ruck, so when you arrive at your final destination, you have something warm and dry to put on your body. Another thing that you may not be thinking about when you're moving in the snow is that it's much easier for the enemy to determine the exact size of your force, simply by looking at the footprints that you're leaving in the snow. For this reason, when moving in a snow-covered environment, you often move in a single column or ranger file, so that your men only are leaving one line of boot prints, making it more difficult for the enemy to determine just how many of you there are. Upon arriving at the bivouac site, we dropped our rucks and immediately began field classes over things like site selection, cooking, and setting up both the 8-man Arctic tent and bottom wreck shelters with the Dakota fire pit.
Either a triangular patrol base, cigar-shaped patrol base, circular patrol base, wagon wheel, whatever you want to call it, right? Same thing in here, we're doing a cigar shape, okay? So we came in, we occupied by force, we didn't have our reconnaissance team come out and sight this. Normally we do. Special Printer platoon, we'll normally send at least a fire team out forward to do a recce real quick and then make sure that this is a good location. The reason why we picked this location is because if you notice coming down here, we've got body of water nearby. We're probably a little too close to that body of water, but the big thing is one, we're in some evergreens, so that's going to provide some aerial cover from observation, specifically from planes, thermal, drones, that type of stuff, okay? And also the weather, that's good. The second thing is there's enough pine boughs around here for our bivouac site. That's also critically important. We're not so far down the terrain feature that we're now in a creek or a low ground, but we're not up on top of the terrain feature either, okay? So normally in a patrol base, you want to be where it's the most easily defendable position, right? And also the least likely the enemy's going to bump into you, okay? In a wintertime bivouac, what we're trying to do is not get caught. Okay, that's the best place for that is somewhere in a deep dark spot, just like a normal patrol base. However, it can't be in a hollow or a low ground or in defilade, and it can't be up on top of the ground in the best defensible position. Okay, one of the big reasons being we are increasing our thermal signature. So down here we're terrain masking, and the second thing is prevailing winds. Okay, so we're sacrificing a little bit of the defensibility and banking on hiding. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing you noticed is we didn't come just straight into this terrain feature. We bypassed it, dog-legged back in. Once we're set, somebody will go back and naturalize that path in and out. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen the old movie 101 Dalmatians when all the fucking dogs, they're going through the snow and all of a sudden Corell's coming bebopping down the road, and what do? They take that pine bough and they fucking, move all the snow away and make it look naturalized. We literally do that. Okay, we literally take these pine boughs and you can go in there. Same thing with the truck. Where that truck went, we get a team to go out there and we naturalize that whole area. The biggest thing that we did coming in here was all stay single file. That's for track discipline. Okay, when we talk about track discipline, we want to make sure that we're not leaving giant snail trails out in the open for aerial observation. If someone picks up our trail, they're going to pick up our trail. Okay, so what do we do to mitigate that? We create a false position somewhere else. So we naturalize this area, and then we have a team go and create a false position with very obvious continuation of the trail we just made. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's our deception plan for trying to increase the security here. We're really relying on trying to hide and not digging in and making ourselves known and then fighting the fight here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the variation of setting up a bivouac site as far as the initial occupation goes from a normal temperate climate. We're trying to hide versus easily defendable. Okay? Okay, so with that in mind, what we're going to do, go ahead and drop rucks. At this point, let's say, what's the next phase? Okay, we would then go occupy local security positions. So think about a normal patrol base, triangular patrol base. Every squad in that platoon is going to take a leg of that triangle and they're going to occupy it. They're going to get their sector sketches in. They're at least going to make sure that they've got some type of bump plan in case they get contact, right? Okay. We do the same thing here, except not everyone's going to be on security because we need to start doing activities to sustain ourselves pretty quickly, right? You can tell how cold it is and wet it is. We want minimal manning on security because we need to set the tents up and immediately start cooking, okay? We need to get you guys some hot liquid. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to bust out the stoves and we're going to show you guys how to use the small unit expeditionary stoves to start boiling some water for our rations, okay? So in the meantime, get your rucks all lined up to where they're, condensed here so we're not gypsy camp everywhere. And then thermal up what you need to thermal. We're going to be static for probably the next 45 minutes. Okay? All right, make it happen.
Did not see anything fall off for a second. Tyler.
He made the same
And I'm actually going to give a class on how to set this whole thing up once everybody gets over here. We have a second one too. But just getting this first one going so we get a pot of water. Okay, so normally what would happen as soon as we set in security, okay? Immediately, you got to think there's two different options for Army, Marine Corps, doesn't matter, Norway, whatever. You've got usually your fire team level shelter, 4 to 5 man, and then a squad level shelter, a 10 or a 14 man shelter, okay? The Finns have modular squad size shelters and they can put whole platoons in these things. But in the U.S. Army, in the Marine Corps, we have a 5-man M1950 5-man Arctic, and we have an M1950 5-man, a 10-man Arctic, okay? They are different than the GP small tents. They're lower walls, and so it retains heat. The very first thing after security is everybody's going to split up into their tent groups, okay? So we definitely leave guys on security, like 1 or 2 guys per tent group. The rest of the tent group is going to immediately start doing several different actions simultaneously, okay? There is a cook in every fire team, okay? That cook is going to start doing exactly what I just did. Outside of the tent, he's going to start setting up the small unit expeditionary stove and boiling as much water as possible for his fire team, okay? The rest of the fire team that's not on security is automatically going to start setting up the tent. Okay, so there's a tent commander, and then 2 to 3 guys, depending on who's on security or who's not, are going to help him set up that tent. That 5-man Arctic really only needs like 2 to 3 guys. The 10-man, same thing, about 4 guys to set that thing up. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing a 5-man or a 10-man, there are roles in bivouac that you perform. Makes sense? And the biggest reason is, you just saw, like, it's not so bad out right now, but if you can imagine, we're in the subarctic area, all of a sudden, something like getting warm liquid inside of you becomes really, really important while you're doing other things, okay? So basically what this small stove consists of, and we've kind of created a custom kit here, okay? We've got the M1950 Cook Set, and this is the outside of the stove system, okay? It comes with a pan for roasting meats and things or whatever you want. It's also a really good prepping place. We've got the actual small unit expeditionary stove that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But the cook set itself comes in three pieces. Okay, you've got the pan, the small insert, and the large pot. Okay, so it's a nesting system. The theory with this 1950s cook set is one of these pots I'm doing this on immediately. Okay, the other pot is ready for when the tent gets set up. I put this on the M1950 Yukon stove. One of these pots is constantly boiling water, always. There will be a hot pot of water 24/7 as long as that stove is running. That's part of the cook's duties, okay? We cook in one, we boil water constantly with the other. And you'll see when we bust out the M1950 Yukon stove that this thing just puts right there on top, okay? Now for today, we're actually going to use all the nesting pots to boil water in. But that's just the kind of the theory behind the 1950s Arctic system. It was a whole system, and it was integrated together with a 5-man fire team. It wasn't until, like, I want to say maybe late 50s, early 60s, the Army started moving away from a 4-man fire team and up to a 5-man fire team at one point, and that was about the time that this system was designed as a precursor right before that change happened. So you're like, why is there a 5-man fire team tent? It's because the Army at one point had 5-man fire teams, and it was also for crews as well, artillery crews, mortar crews, you name it, 5-man crews. But anyway, so that's the theory with this. In this is not something that comes with the cook set. We have several packable utensils in here that you guys will get a chance to look at. Some scrubbers, stuff like that, camp soap to clean with. Again, kind of important. Well, let's talk about the small unit expeditionary stove for a second. So the Suze is going to come with the base stove unit, which is the XGK EX MSR stove, okay? It is the exact same stove that the United States Marine Corps has for their SUs. The only difference is they have a burner valve in theirs. They have the same burner valves in this one. They have an additional burner valve for JP8, okay? Because pretty much the whole military runs off of JP8 now. The civilian model comes with 2 burner valves, one for white gas and kerosene, and the other one for diesel. So it is a multi-fuel stove, which gives you a little bit of flexibility with your fire team, okay? Really easy to deploy. The legs just pull out with itself, okay? And it also has pretty wide grippers there for setting the stove on top of. So this is the stove unit itself. It's also going to come with a small bottle. I had to make a modification to cut the dumbass MSR carabiner rings that they have on them. They're not dumbass, they make sense for torque, but for this it doesn't fit, so I modified it to fit in there. Okay, so you get one of those as well. You've got the stove pump. The stove pump mates with the actual stove bottle itself, okay? And I'll show you in a second how that works. And then you can see on this one that's already being demoed here, you're gonna come with 2 aluminum windscreens. One's a thermal screen for the ground to prevent what type of heat loss? Radiation heat loss, right? See how, and then also you've got another one, which is a windscreen to prevent what type of heat loss? Convection heat loss, exactly, okay? So you're gonna get 2 of those, and then it's also got a repair kit that comes with it as well. This is good, it's got silicone stuff, and you name it, if you need a quick repair kit. Okay, so first to set this up, you're gonna wanna put the base screen down first. Obviously it's super wet, so we're not worried about burning anything near here, but this thing is gonna put out a significant flame when it starts, okay? So the rule of thumb is we don't cook inside of tents with these, okay? Now, I would say that it's not 100% true. There is a way in which you can start this thing, move it inside, and as long as you're under the stove flue, where it's got good ventilation, you're fine, okay? The Canadian Army has 2 burner Coleman stoves, and that's exactly how they use it, under the 5-man Arctic tent flue. So all you're gonna do is you're just gonna mate the male end into the female end and make sure it's seated down all the way, okay? You'll hear kind of a little click in there, you'll know it's good. At that point, you're gonna move the latch and lock, and then all you're gonna do is you're gonna give it some pumps, okay? It's got directions on the side there. I think it says like something like 30 pumps or whatever if it's like half full, and 15 pumps if it's full, that type of thing. So you're gonna give it some pumps, you're gonna prime it.
So male into female and then start pumping. Is that right?
Right, just like everything else in the military. Okay, light it. It's gonna burn for a little bit, and then you're gonna wanna give it some gas, okay? And it's gonna take a second to burn all that off. Now that it's got gas, it's gonna work. And that's pretty much it with the stove. Let all that excess prime get burned off, and then it'll coalesce into the flame. And it's really not adjustable. This version is. The whisper light is way more adjustable, and it's not as loud. But this thing is the most efficient in any environment. You're gonna get a solid flame every single time. And the biggest thing with this stove is it works at elevation, and it works at extreme temperatures. The whisper light does have a limited operating temperature range. I don't know exactly what it is. Go on their website, you'll find it. But the big thing is the elevation. This thing works anywhere in the world, like including Mount Everest type of thing. So that's why the Marine Corps went with it, okay? It's, like I said, got one setting, on. So you're just gonna boil and that's about it. If you're trying to make a ratatouille or something, it's not gonna work very well.
So,
Okay? rinse in there, and then rinse, do your second rinse in there. Next guy. All right, here's this. Perfect. This up on a really drastically sloping hill. Something else we want to think about is giving ourselves some sort of overhead cover. One, aerial cover, right? Drones, stuff like that. But also when we start burning the stoves, it allows the smoke to dissipate through the trees versus just a big smokestack going up into the air, okay? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the tent unpacked. So let's go ahead and start working on getting
I'm gonna go grab a.
done here.
So the door we're going to use is facing out that way, okay? So once you find it, we're going to rotate it to there, and the tent leader is going to guide us to stretch it out like that parachute back in gym class when we were young, right? Get a few more hands on here. Stretch. All right, we got our doors located. And now we're going to go clockwise to orientate the door we're going to use out that way. What's the 12 o'clock towards the enemy. Right there. Parker, say when?
Right there.
All right.
Yeah, so it can be heated, it's man portable, it helps to limit the signature of your fire because all the lean-tos face into your fire. You don't have as much reflected firelight out into space, and it's very efficient that way.
Cause I'll pull it till it gets.
They're up there.
That look pretty good, guys.
Yeah, it's fine.
So you guys are going to want to, like I said, you may need to adjust this a little bit as you go.
2 Von Rex shelters alongside the 8-man Arctic tent would be constructed for use during the FTX. Last year at Winter Forge, all personnel slept inside the Arctic tent. This year, however, 2 Von Rex shelters would be used for each fire team, and the Arctic tent would be used for the COC.
Whether we're talking about optics, night vision, rifles, whatever sort of equipment that we need to be operating, keeping that stuff free from moisture and ice. So we talked about the stoves earlier, keeping that stuff wrapped up to where there's not ice formation that's building up on it, keeping that stuff covered. That's pretty simple there. Stoves are going to be a necessity for us, all right? So whether it's a small personal stove or the team stoves, it's something that we've got to have in a cold weather environment, and we've got to keep that stuff protected from the environment, all right? Because ice starts forming on it, parts start seizing up, plastic parts can get brittle, they can break, and that can damage your stove, okay?
And lastly, a state-of-the-art field shitter would be constructed. Only the finest branches were selected to construct this fine man throne.
Get
Still
a
one
deep
brewing.
squat.
I think they say if you got your knees up, it's better. Like you have better flow.
If you think in the temperate zone, 2/3 of our guys are up doing something, whether that's pulling security, planning for an operation, or actively patrolling. The opposite is true in the wintertime. 2/3 of our guys are actually down on rest cycle or planning. And that's also split up between the time of patrolling. So you've only got about a 1/3 of your guys at any given time that are on security. And that's got to be split between other combat activities as well. So here's the thing: we're reduced manpower. We don't have as much ground we can cover, okay? And we have to prioritize the resting. Remember, our #1 defense here is passive. We're hiding. That's the goal, is to create a camouflaged enough spot that's out of the wind. It's train mass that we're hiding. So that's our primary means of defense here. The secondary is our sentry post. Okay, we don't have if we set them too close, not going to be enough time for these guys to get out of the tent. If we put them too far, like an LPOP, there's going to be massive gaps, and now we're going to have coverage that's missing, and guys will infiltrate through and find the tents. Okay? So in the winter, we strike a balance and we go, look, we're taking a little bit of a risk, right? It would be nice to have even more warning, but we can't cover, as we get further away from the center here, the distance between those LPOPs or the positions get larger. And that's just a bigger gap that can be infiltrated through.
Following the completion of all classes, the students were given one final administrative opportunity to get their shit squared away before we kicked off into the field training exercise. For this FTX, we'd be broken into two opposing sides, which consisted of Blue 4, made up of S&S, outfitted in multicam, and brown dyed UCP. I would be the patrol leader, Parker would be the assistant patrol leader, and Cole would be the RTO and squad medic. The Op 4 during this FTX would be made up of members of the Light Fighter Studies Group, who would be wearing olive drab utilities. The patrol leader of these communist heathens would be Tyler. The official start of the FTX would kick off following the road to war from the OCs and a subsequent mission from our respective hire.
Scope of this exercise. During this one-day FTX, the student members are immersed into a tactical scenario to explore the dynamics of a small unit leadership, decision-making, and problem-solving processes. Primary learning objectives of this FTX focus on individual and small unit operations in a cold weather environment. Secondary learning objectives include patrol base operations, reconnaissance, and ambush. The current geographic and climate of the area. The nation state of Rotania, NSR, is located in the northern hemisphere south of the Arctic Circle and is generally undeveloped. The NSR has urban areas but is largely undeveloped countryside covered with dense forests, intermittent streams, rivers, and rolling hills.
Our first mission was this. As you can see on this map, the approximate location of our bivouac site was here. We were then tasked by hire to conduct screening operations throughout the night in order to prevent enemy patrols from moving through the corridor to our east. To accomplish this mission, one team would be tasked with screening operations and the other would be responsible for bivouac security.
How do we want to proceed from here?
Well, what's our parameters?
So I would like to push further south and explore that area.
South into where?
Just go across the creek and we'll just slowly start kind of exploring this and get comfortable with that terrain. How long do you guys want to go out there? What's your plan for tonight? Who's planning on sleeping?
I would love to sleep at some point. It's not necessary, but I'd like to.
What's your guys' status?
Whatever they need. I know
They're short staffed.
Derek's wanting to rotate in if he can get his boots tried out.
Okay.
Here you can see just how much light the fires from the Dakota fire pits produce out of the top of the Von Rex. That's why during cold weather operations, good site selection to aid in concealment of your bivouac is even more critical, because the use of fires is necessary to keep guys warm and alive. Morning came with no contact with the enemy. At around 06, we were tasked by hire to start conducting patrols further south due to enemy activity being reported. Hire dictated that our limit of advance would be the tree line leading into the larger wooded area typically referred to as the shoebox. One fire team would then be tasked with conducting this patrol while the others provided security at the bivouac site. About an hour into that fire team's patrol of our new area of operation, they ran into tracks leading into the entrance of the shoebox. After the team called back on the radio notifying us of this, we subsequently decided to leave an ambush there at the point where the tracks led in. Until we could get clearance from higher to begin pushing recon patrols into the shoebox, we were not allowed to enter that AO. About an hour into our guys being at the ambush position, a larger OPFOR patrol began moving through towards where the ambush position was set up. A subsequent firefight took place, and out of the 4-man fire team, only one returned alive, which told us that the OPFOR were trying to move into our AO in force. We then organized another patrol to head out and locate and destroy the OPFOR if they were still in our AO. After patrolling the area for a few hours with no enemy contact, we subsequently returned back to the bivouac site to receive further orders from higher. Shortly after getting back, I received word from higher that intelligence had stated that there was an OPFOR encampment and communications node somewhere in the shoebox, and thus we were tasked by higher to locate and destroy them no later than 2000. We then decided to launch a 3-man reconnaissance team consisting of Parker, Cole, and one other warrior into the shoebox to try to gain intelligence on the location of the enemy encampment and communications node. The next phase of the operation would be for the rest of the squad to link up with the recon team at a rendezvous point, be briefed, and subsequently be guided into an attack position to carry out the final assault on the enemy's position.
Alright guys, so yesterday we stepped off after our winter patrolling class and established our bivouac site. And after all the lessons, we went straight into the FTX portion. So last night conducted a lot of screening patrols, tried to develop some intelligence, and started running sentry posts at our bivouac site throughout the night. Woke up this morning and pushed out some patrols this morning, ended up hitting some contact, established a little bit more intelligence of where the enemy is at. And so right now we're going to step off on a recon patrol, taking 3 guys with us, and going to develop some more intelligence for the final push this evening to flush the guys out of the AO. So right now we're just gearing up, getting ready to do a comms check and establish our route, and then we're stepping off.
Awesome.
Hey.
What you got for us?
Well, this is the latter half of Winter Forge. We're getting ready to go try to find the enemy, take it to them, and end this on a big note there. So
I see you put on your birthday suit.
I hope I'm not overdressed. It's starting to melt off. Look, got a little warmer than we wanted today, but it's still quite a bit out there. So I think this combination here is going to be the ticket. Low level white, high up here, a little bit of brown with the dyed UCP. It's performing great out here. If you guys want to come out to Winter Forge, buy that stuff, dye it, and get out here.
It does look good.
For UCP.
Now, what was the direct route that we were talking about taking earlier? We need to end up over here.
Basically straight up through this open gap, which is not open. It's mostly cedar trees and stuff now.
Once pre-combat checks and pre-combat inspections were conducted, the recon team got a radio check and then stepped off on their mission. While we were back at the bivouac site standing by, the guys prepared for the final attack, which gave me an opportunity to go around and speak to all the men. Alright guys, this is Mike Klein, one Shepherd veteran.
Yeah.
What's your assessment of the situation?
So, I think we got a smaller force out there, and I think they're kind of hiding out from us a little bit, and we got to smoke them out.
You ready to step off on this final attack?
Hell yeah.
Got one of those Klein machining AR RPKs right here too. All right, guys, this is Jacobson's first time out at Winter Forge, so tell us what your experience has been thus far.
For Winter Forge in particular, it's been tough. Tougher than I was expecting. I mean, I was expecting the FTX portion in large, but with all the additional training and then the sleeping in these god-awful Von Rucks for 2 nights in a row. Yeah, it definitely turned it into a bit of a gut check, and I'm impressed overall. Overall, a great group of guys here, so a lot of fun, and yeah, I look forward to coming through again for some more S&S and One Shepherd events.
All right, well, you're about to step off on the final attack, so how do you feel about that?
I'm excited. I'm excited. Time to burn some rounds and slay some bodies.
All right, Kyle, this is your first Winter Forge, man. I see you're a One Shepherd veteran, as is a lot of folks out here. So what's your impressions thus far?
This is great training. The environment is probably the biggest hurdle for me right now. It's very cold. It's just tough to stay up and going. So really good experience just getting exposed to this.
Yeah, sun's starting to peek out. It's the first we've seen it.
Yeah.
So you ready to push down on the enemy? It's going to be the final attack, man.
Yeah, we got them pretty squared away where we think they're going to be. So we got a recon element out. Hopefully we locate them and then we go do some work.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
All right, guys. This is Will Sherlin with Gutter Fighter Secrets. So this is his first Winter Forge, right?
Yeah, first one.
All right, man. What are your thoughts of this training course?
Dude, it's been tough, man, but it's badass. Guys, you need to get out here to Winter Forge. If you haven't had winter training in small unit tactics, it's a lot different than coming out here for the spring and fall semesters to One Shepherd. You know, S&S, they're doing it really a good service to everybody out there, all the warriors out there. You need to come out here and get some hands-on. You can look at all the YouTube videos you want and become an armchair general or whatever, but unless you get out here in the snow, in the suck, and feel the pain, guys, it's a lot different. I'll see you out here next time.
Yeah, dudes were feeling the pain last night for sure.
Dude, everyone was feeling the pain. Our little Dakota fire pit was spitting smoke in our faces, and it was definitely a crappy situation, but embrace the suck, right?
All right, man. Well, we got the final offensive about to kick off. How
We're
you feel about
slay
that?
many bodies out there, bro.
All right. Well, we hope so. Thanks, bud.
Cheers.
All right, guys. So this is day 2 of our FTX here at the Winter Forge, S&S Training Solutions, and so pretty much what's going on is we've been running reconnaissance patrols all day, and we've had one significant contact where we lost 3 of our guys. One of them made it back, but he didn't know too many details. He was essentially the last guy in the recon patrol. We've been tasked by Hire to conduct a movement to contact in a new AO, which is essentially the shoebox as we colloquially know it in One Shepherd. So right now we just kicked out a reconnaissance element. They're pushing down there right now to gain a foothold. And then at 1600, I'm going to step off with the rest of the remaining squad members. And we're going to move down there, set up an ORP, and then from there we're going to conduct a new movement to contact and hopefully locate, close with, and destroy these motherfuckers. As the recon team moved towards the entrance of the shoebox, they began to receive fire from what appeared to be a small op-4 position at the edge of the entrance.
Yankee 3-2, this is Yankee 2-2. We have contact to our front at the corner. Over. Smoke, smoke, throw that smoke, get out of there. IMT, IMT, IMT. Let's move 100 meters back this time. Contact! Moving! Moving! Oh, fuck. Yeah, I'm good. I'm moving. I'm good. I'm good. All right, set.
Moving. Set. I'm out of view.
Let's go to that last rally point.
Following contact, the recon team radioed back to us to inform us that the originally planned rendezvous point was not going to work, and they subsequently provided us with a new link-up location.
Tango, Echo, Delta, Delta, break. Bravo, Sierra, Sierra, Delta. How copy? Over.
Yep. Everybody's checked off. Everybody's got their ammo. Ready?
Once a new rendezvous point was selected, the rest of the squad stepped off to make link-up with the recon team. The link-up was successful with no enemy intervention. I was then briefed by the APL on what they had discovered, and from there we formulated a plan on the final assault on the suspected location of the enemy encampment.
Alright, what do we got? Alright, so... Right there's where we got contact. Okay, there's a creek that runs right here that's like nearly impassable from this direction. So that's what makes us think we need to find a different point to punch in. But our suspicion is that they've got sentries set up along this defensive posture right here. But I mean, they were no more than 100 meters inside of the woods. Okay. So basically, what we've done now is moved down this creek line, and so we're somewhere down in here right now. All right. So I don't know what you want to do from here, but I think we're more up here. Okay. All right. So. Where do you think their bivouac site is? I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I'm guessing because they've got sentries down here. They're probably bivouacked somewhere in here. Okay. And they've kicked out these sentries. So, my thought is, if we can get on this road and fucking push up, I agree. Sweep down that logging trail, take the high ground, and fucking flush them out. I agree. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and mount up my nods, because I'm gonna assume it's probably gonna be dark by the time we fucking get on target. So.
Yeah, what time is it now? It's probably like 1600, right?
Yeah.
We won't have another stop, probably.
Right. Okay. Alright. I'll get mine ready. Alright.
What's order of march?
What's that?
Order of march?
We'll put you guys in the front, because you know the terrain best. And then, I've already got these guys in order of march. So. Alright, so look. That logging drill that cuts in up here to this high ground, do you want to use that logging drill as a high-speed avenue of approach? Well, so we have that intel about there might be a comm node. So if there is a comm node, they probably took that. One of these hills, probably. They probably took that trail. So, do you want to move on the north side of it, or on the? I want to try to get over here. Okay. And push up north, and then come around from behind. Okay, so we'll get on the other side of that logging trail. Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Is that good? Yep. All right, let's get our knots on.
One big hurdle that we had to overcome to get into the shoebox was crossing a very large open danger area. We would accomplish this by utilizing a fire team bounding method. One fire team would hold overwatch on the near side while the other pushed across to the far side. Once over to the far side and security was established, the next team would then push across. After successfully crossing the danger area, we then made movement up and around to our attack position, at which point we got online and began pushing from the east towards the west. Our attack on the enemy encampment took them completely by surprise. There was only one op-4, however, at the location, who was quickly killed. We then consolidated on the location in preparation for a counterattack. A large fire was also set to simulate the destruction of the comm node.
Side of that ball right down there. The guy on the other side of this tree facing that direction. Okay, we need to get him over there by that ball rack. It's probably going to come back to it. Okay. There's a kind of little approach over there as well. We need to get away from this fire too, because we're skyline ourselves. Can we consolidate? We got guys everywhere. Can I take a Bravo with you or something? No, we're leaving them where they're at. We got these right here. What do you want me to do?
Having taken out the enemy's encampment and communications node with no sign of the larger force, we then began to attempt to lure them back to their encampment by shooting off a flare. However, this plan didn't work, and it was clear that the enemy had pushed out from the camp and was likely at the edge of the shoebox where the recon team had first taken contact earlier in the day. We then made the decision to conduct a movement to contact back towards the bivouac in an effort that we would in fact run into them along the way back. As we made our way back through the thick, heavy woods, we then came up upon another large open danger area at the edge of the tree line leading the shoebox. The enemy had to be close, but at this point it was a movement to contact. We were done being sneaky. It was time to locate, close with, and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver. The squad then began to move out from the tree line to cross the field in a large open squad wedge.
Yep. Contact left! Push! 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 Now fight into it! Fight into it! Right side moving!
Moving!
Reloading!
Covering!
We're pushing, we're pushing, we're pushing.
The enemy had hit us from the tree line just off to our left as we were crossing. Given the distance, we immediately assaulted into it. After a fierce firefight into the tree line, Cole had assembled a fire team plus size element and began to maneuver on the enemy from their north pushing south.
Guys pushing south, let's get online.
Roger!
We're pushing, we're pushing.
Right here! Get online!
Keep pushing, keep pushing. Come on, keep pushing, keep pushing. Go, go, keep pushing.
The firefight was pretty heavy and sustained. After probably about 20 minutes of hooking and jabbing with the enemy, it appeared that we had killed all but one remaining op-4 fighter. Guys were starting to run bingo on ammunition, and we had a pretty significant number of casualties ourselves in the fighting.
I'll lead out if they don't know where they're going. Follow me. Everyone got everything right?
Let's go, fellas.
Come on, follow me. Let's go. Contact. Spread out, spread out, spread out.
I then made the call to begin breaking contact. One team would cover while the other bounded back.
Let's go. Order of march. Step it off. Cover. Bravo team, go. Bravo, move. Alpha's got you covered.
Falling back.
We're breaking contact.
Break contact. Let's go. Push the contact or fall? No, break contact. Break. We're getting out of here.
Cover, move, cover, move.
Who's this, Bravo?
Once we made it back to our bivouac site, Index was officially called, bringing the 3rd annual Winter Forge training event FTX to a close. The Warriors would get a good night's rest inside the Arctic tent, and an after-action review would take place the following morning.
It's not up in the air for no reason. Alright guys, we are going to conduct the after-action review for the Winter Forge event that we just participated in. This event, when we do the AAR, we always kind of focus on the cold weather techniques and tactics that we were taught, methods and shelters and that kind of thing, and how we applied them in the FTX. So it's not so much in this event about the, who killed who, what patrol leaders did what during the mission. All that stuff's fun and relevant, but here we really want to isolate the cold weather aspects and how that made our performances better or worse and things we can improve on there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our measle rider and white cell guru, Michael Bates, here to guide us through that experience.
Morning. How was your FTX? How was your training? Cold.
Cold. Like it should be.
Was it what you expected? Even more. Even more. Everything in a bag of chips. No, that's why we're out here. I mean, I think all of us wanted to do some cold weather training. I think we got that opportunity. But essentially, we wanted to take the time to talk about not only the aspects of going out into the field and actually doing it, but what are the things that you need to do and improve upon to be successful out there, because it's tough. I think everybody can agree that operating in a cold weather environment has its challenges. So I know that there's a lot of folks who have been out here. I've seen a lot of faces that are repeats. Cole, this is your third?
Yeah, third winter.
I've been involved with it for 2 events. Both times we've had snow and cold weather, and this particular event was, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, the most challenging. Everyone's like, oh, Arctic. That's the worst environment you can operate in. Fallacy. Intermediate cold weather operations, which is this, is wet and semi-warm and muddy and shitty during the day, freezing cold, kill you at night. So, just wanted to talk to some of the folks who are returners, by show of hands, who's done this again, or been. All right, that's awesome.
Following the AAR, a final formation and patching ceremony awarding members with their S&S patch took place.
All right, guys. Winter Forge 2022 concluded. Congratulations, guys. You pushed yourselves through some of the toughest shit that most people will never voluntarily do, and you guys paid to come out here. I fucking applaud you guys for pushing through. I didn't hear anyone ever really bitch, gripe, complain. You guys just fucking gutted up and did the mission, and you guys did it well. It was like really cool seeing you guys go through all the cycles and rest cycles, pushing out patrols, getting all the tasks done at the patrol base. Really cool, guys.
The 2023 Winter Forge training event will go from January 10th through the 14th. In celebration of the 10-year anniversary of S&S Training Solutions, the event will be a joint event with One Shepherd Leadership Institute, laying the groundwork for an excellent FTX. Well, that's it, guys. Registration for the 4th annual 2023 Winter Forge training event will begin March 1st, 2022, and will close January 2nd, 2023. Just for your essay, I'll be teaching some of the classes next year. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment.